Authorities say a former teacher violated her bail conditions when she reached out to a student that she's accused of groping at a Taco Bell. You heard that right. Now she's in even more trouble and could face more severe consequences. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Former special education teacher Natalia Wright was already in hot water, facing charges for allegedly kissing and fondling a student. But now she's in even more trouble for contacting the victim after her arrest. That's the allegation here. So to talk about this, let me bring in Bridgette Williams, trial attorney and former prosecutor. Thank you so much for coming here on Sidebar. It's good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me, Jason. I'm glad to be here.
Of course. So first, how often do we see this? Not necessarily this exact situation, but, suspects breaking the conditions of their pretrial release by trying to contact the alleged victim in a case.
It happens more often than we think it does. Whenever someone has, let's say, even just an assault case or something that involves an alleged victim, more than likely, I'm going to say probably 99% of the time, there is a no contact order that is a part of the bond conditions. Or let's say that it's moved on to a plea, there will be a no contact order with the victim in that particular case. And so the person has the responsibility at that time to not have any contact. I remember a judge here in Dallas, she says, if you see them in the store, you better walk the other direction. And that's the truth, because you are the person who will be responsible and have a violation of your bond conditions if you have any contact with them.
And contact can be anything. It's not like just, hey, they spoke to me about the case. They were trying to influence my testimony. They were trying to, drop their account of what happened. It's, you say hi to them. That could be a violation.
Absolutely. Contact is any contact. So like I was saying earlier, if you see them in the store, you better walk the other direction. Another thing that commonly happens is they may say, well, the victim contacted me, and so I just answered the phone. Well, the victim is not the person who's going to be in trouble. You are. And so when the person has that no contact order, the person, the defendant, is the person who can be responsible and have a violation if they have any type of communication with that alleged victim.
So 31-year-old Wright, she was this special education inclusion teacher at Lewisburg High School in DeSoto County when she resigned on April 3rd of this year. And according to an affidavit that was obtained by Fox 13 Memphis, Wright had been, quote, seen making out with a teen outside of a Taco Bell, and then again outside of a local Baptist church on the same day. Now, Wright also had ongoing communication with the victim, this is according to the court paperwork, and had driven the student to school in her own car several times. And according to the affidavit, Wright was arrested in May after her husband filmed her admitting to kissing the student several times while she was tutoring him at his home. Wright was charged with fondling by a person in a position of trust, which is a felony crime in Mississippi. And according to the state's criminal code, any person who, for the purpose of gratifying the person's lust or indulging the person's depraved, licentious sexual desires, shall handle, touch, or rub with hands or any part of the person's body or any member thereof any vulnerable person with or without the vulnerable person's consent when the person occupies a position of trust or authority over the vulnerable person shall be guilty of a felony, and upon conviction thereof shall be fined in a sum not less than $1,000 nor more than $5,000, or be committed to the custody of the Department of Corrections not less than 2 nor more than 15 years, or be punished by both fine and imprisonment at the discretion of the court. Okay, Bridgette, first off, I gotta say, I cover these cases a lot. Are you ever shocked by the allegations of how blatant this is? How in the open something like this is? I mean, taking this as true, the church, the Taco Bell, no attempt at hiding this? I mean, not that they should, but it's just like really in the face.
It is. It's very blatant, like you stated. When I say, I don't think I've ever been shocked, not at something like this, because to me, if someone's doing this out in the open, they have no shame, right? They have no shame whatsoever. And multiple witnesses stated that they saw this teacher with the student, like you stated, at the Taco Bell and outside of a church. So they have no shame about it. And to me, that kind of leads to the area of this person has some type of sickness. They have something going on that they need additional help for. And so I'd rather it be out in the open than them hiding it, so that way it can be rectified quickly, and that way that they can get the assistance that's necessary.
Hey everybody, this is a Law&Crime legal alert. Did you know that children are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and the research is potentially linking ultra-processed foods to all this? Yeah, well, Morgan & Morgan, they're stepping in to fight to hold these food companies accountable. With decades of experience fighting large corporations, they are ready to stand up for the families who deserve justice. So if your child under 21 has been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or fatty liver disease, then visit www.forthepeople.com/food or scan the QR code on screen to learn more. The statute I just read, does it feel relatively straightforward for prosecutors to hit all those elements, or is there wiggle room for the defense a bit?
I think it's pretty straightforward. That is similar to the one that we have here in Texas of an inappropriate relationship between a teacher and a student. The difference is that ours is a little stronger in the fact of that the punishment range is 2 to 20 years here in Texas, and up to a $10,000 fine for that. Whenever we talk about, okay, well, was it done for the immediate gratification or sexual gratification of the person who is the defendant? One thing that did stand out to me was there any type of sexual attention to any part of the body? However, here in Texas, we have to have, was there some type of touching contact with just more intimate parts of the person? And so that can be a little bit of a difference there. So if there's any type of wiggle room, it may be, well, what was the purpose done? Why was she doing it? I mean, I don't think that there's a lot of wiggle room there at all, though.
By the way, this statute offers kind of a wide range of potential punishment, both prison, fine. What would factor into a sentencing decision if she's found guilty, and what do you think she might be looking at?
Well, that depends on one, if she goes to trial in the first place. If she decides that she's going to accept a plea offer from a prosecutor, then that could be any range, right? They will take into account criminal history. So if she's had previous offenses before, and then the severity of what went on in this particular case itself. Has she done anything to try to rehabilitate herself? Has she gone to any type of therapy or counseling sessions? She clearly violated the order here, so that's something that would not be in her best interest. So that would be things that would take into consideration with conversations and negotiations with the prosecutor. If it moved forward to a trial setting, then the judge is going to take into consideration all of those things and what actually comes out in a trial. So many things come out in trial that we don't always know or have access to prior to trial. So I would say everything that comes out in a trial setting, and then what the defense brings up during the punishment phase.
Now, according to DeSoto County Jail records, Wright was booked just before 8 p.m. on Tuesday, May 13th, released the following Thursday on a $200,000 surety bond, which required her to use a GPS monitor. Bridgette, talk to me real quick about the different types of bail. When we're talking about a surety bond, what is that? How does that ensure she will follow the rules, the GPS monitor? What should we be thinking there?
So there are different types of bonds. So we'll start with, let's say, a PR bond. A PR bond is where a person just gives the word that they will come back to court. The purpose of a bond is to make sure if the person is released, then they will come back to the court settings and make sure that the case is actually resolved. So we start off with a PR bond. That is where the person doesn't have to pay anything. The court just will say, at your word, we believe that you will come back. Normally, that's going to be for people who have no criminal history and they are not involved in any type of violent offenses at all whatsoever. Then we move on to a surety bond. A surety bond is where a person normally will have a bail bondsman company assist them with the payment of the bond. And normally what happens is that person will pay the bail bondsman company a percentage of the amount of the bond. And then the bail bondsman company will tell the court, we will be responsible if this person does not show up anymore. So $200,000, the bail bondsman company will charge the defendant $20,000, 10%. And then they will tell the court, we will be responsible for $200,000 if she does not show back up. And the last option, of course, is a cash bond. And that is if, let's say, the court is saying, you have to pay us cash. There is no surety. We will not accept the word of any other person to be responsible. Your only option is to pay the full cost in cash to us in exchange for you being released and having to come back to court.
You think what was set for her here, you think it was fair?
Fair is an extreme word there. I would say I think that it was understandable. It's reasonable. It required her to have to put up something that would make her think twice about violating the bond again. So $200,000 bond, I think, is a good amount for her to actually consider and make sure that she's supposed to come back to court, along with having the GPS tracker. The GPS tracker is something that is common in cases where there may be something where the court is trying to track their location, make sure they stay away from an alleged victim or a actual place, to make sure that the person stays away from a place as well.
Well, again, it seems after her release, Wright moved from Mississippi to Texas because she was arrested by San Antonio police for violating her bail conditions. And the police confirmed to News Channel 3 on Friday, July 11th, that Wright, quote, violated a no contact order with the underage victim and her bond was revoked. Now, it's no word on if or when she's going to be extradited back to Mississippi, but at last check, she is being held at the Bear Adult Detention Center in San Antonio. So my question to you is, why was she allowed to leave the state?
That's a very good question that I don't know the answer to. But what I will say is that I would think that she wouldn't have been allowed to leave the state. However, whenever a person, again, here in Texas, this is a state by state thing. Sometimes it's a county by county thing. Here in Dallas, Texas, we have where the person, if they have an ankle monitor on or any type of GPS tracking, even if they don't, let's just say that they are on bond conditions, period. They have to have communications with the pre-bond division of the county to let them know that they are leaving out of the state. And so I'm not sure what the rules are there in DeSoto County, Mississippi, but they may have thought, okay, well, we have the tracking on you. You can leave and go to another state. We're watching you. We know that you are there. We know exactly where you are if we need to come and get you.
Does this mean she's locked up until trial? And does she forfeit any of the money that was put up for bail for breaking or allegedly breaking the rules?
It could mean that she has to be in jail until it's time for the actual trial or until the case is resolved. In theory, that's what it means. However, like I say, everything is normally negotiable. She can hire a lawyer and have something worked out on her behalf for her to be released. She may have to have some further conditions of bond where she may have to not be able to leave her home or further conditions, right? To your second question, does she forfeit the bond amount? Now, she very well, again, in theory, could have forfeited the bond amount if they come to some type of resolution for her bond to be put back in place. A judge can order for that bond to be put back in place. If the bail bondsman company agrees to it, they'll just go right back on the bond.
And by the way, I can't not mention this, the importance of keeping suspects away from their alleged victims, especially when those victims are children. That was on full display in another recent case. Alyssa McCommon, she was sentenced to 25 years in prison without the chance for parole in Tennessee at the end of last year. So the 38-year-old had been a teacher at an elementary school when she raped a young boy, actually becoming pregnant with the 12-year-old's child. McCommon had the baby, who's now in custody of her victim's mother. But as she awaited trial, McCommon had been allowed bond. But in a stunning move, she apparently reached out to the boy, letting him know she was pregnant and that she planned to raise the baby. She was rearrested on additional charges of coercion of a witness, aggravated stalking, harassment. Multiple juveniles ended up coming forward in this case, claiming that McCommon groomed and sexually assaulted them. And prosecutors believe that McCommon had at least 21 victims. She entered a guilty plea before her trial, which was supposed to start in January of 2025. But I mean, Bridgette, a little bit different here, but you have another example of somebody reaching out, different circumstances. That's also a shocking case.
That is an extremely shocking case with so much overwhelming evidence against the person. I'm not shocked that they agreed to a plea agreement prior to a trial setting. At least with that, they can kind of control what the amount of punishment would be for them. If it's a trial setting, she's found guilty, like we talked about earlier, so much more evidence could come out in the trial setting, and that could make it even worse. And so with something like that, again, 20 to 25 victims coming forward, that is just preposterous.
That's not uncommon, though. That happens in these kinds of cases. As soon as there's one allegation or one series of charges, you might see other alleged victims coming forward.
Yeah, it's not uncommon. But when we talk about children, it's even more shocking when it's children. And this person was a former teacher. And so it continues to paint that picture of whenever somebody is released on bond, making sure that the court takes into consideration all the factors that can go into place with that.
Do you know what happens to a child in these scenarios with custody if you're dealing with an adult who sexually abuses, rapes a minor, and they have a child? Typically, do you know what happens to that child? Are they automatically, given to the victim's family? Or are they, I don't know what happens in those scenarios usually.
Yeah, I don't know what happens in those type of scenarios either. I would think that it would be something to where maybe the child's parents may be considered as someone that could take custody of that child, or is the state someone, a place for the child to go? I'm not sure about that.
Bridgette Williams, thank you so much for coming on, breaking down the different legal issues surrounding these defendants. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.